Why, hello, learning nerds. Before we begin today's show, I want to thank our awesome sponsors, with first giving a shout out to Idle Courses Academy. Idle Academy is the first and only authorized vocational school for instructional design and online learning. It includes a comprehensive hands-on curriculum with certifications, credentials, expert coaches, mentors, a community of practice, paid experience opportunities, industry-preferred software access, live events, and ongoing updates. Your entire instructional design career is neatly packaged behind a single login for just $88 a month. Check out all the details at idlecourses.com/academy, and you can use my code Luke for $88 off the yearly membership. Okay, now let's start the show. Hello, my nerdy people, and welcome back on in to another podcast episode. My name is Dr. Luke Hobson. I'm a senior instructional designer, program manager, author, blogger, podcaster, YouTuber, and overall learning nerd. My passion is to help you learn more about instructional design and designing meaningful online learning experiences. And of course, you can find all of the resources that I have for you over at drlukehobson.com. Today's podcast episode is called Why Learning Environments Deeply Matter. This was inspired by a couple of different types of tweaks and changes that I've been doing in regards to not only how I study, but also how I work. And some of these small changes have led to some amazing results and have helped me to become far more productive. So for this episode, I was trying to think about ways to share with you about diving in deeper into these learning environments and also categorizing them into 4 different areas that I don't think get as much attention as they probably should. So let's start this episode and dive on into this, shall we? Make sure to have a well-lit room, a clean desk, and classical music playing softly in the background. When I took a how to study course back in the 8th grade, these were the recommendations. These seem to be the standard words of wisdom, we'll call them, that we pass along to students, and to be fair, they can be helpful. For adult learners, though, this isn't enough, and oftentimes isn't necessarily feasible. When I say adult learners, what comes to mind is probably not an adult properly sitting up straight, working at a pristine desk. Instead, I think of an overworked, stressed out person on their 4th cup of coffee trying to learn on their lunch break or after they put their kids to bed. It is a rare commodity to find the perfect time and place to learn something new. Your learning environment deeply matters to how much information you can encode, store, and retrieve. These are, after all, the 3 stages of memory. In essence, you need to learn how to create an effective learning environment. If you are like the busy adult that I just described who is frustrated by making little progress and trying to learn something new, then this piece is for you. It's also for the educator and the instructional designer who can help to guide the learners down the right path. So let's bust through some of these learning plateaus and finally move that needle forwards. When thinking about learning environments, as I just said a couple of moments ago, 4 spaces come to mind. I think of headspace, physical space, social space, and virtual space. Now let's break each of these down and talk not only about their significance, but how to use them properly. The first is headspace. And when I say headspace, I'm not referring to the meditation app. I'm referring to someone's state of mind. If adults have a desire to learn a new skill, this could be coming from a place of stress. They have a problem, and by learning this new skill, it's going to help them to solve this problem. Depending upon how severe the problem is, will drastically impact their motivations to learn. Contrary to popular belief, by the way, stress isn't a bad thing. The appropriate amount of stress can boost motivation, focus, awareness, drive, and push you in the right direction. Having too much will obviously, though, lead to dangerous side effects. All of this to say is that before you begin the task of learning a new skill, check in on yourself. Maslow's hierarchy of needs still holds true to this day. If your basic needs are not being met and you are finding yourself overwhelmed in a big ball of stress, you need to prioritize what really matters. It is perfectly okay to admit that you are not okay. After all, Elmo recently checked in to see how everyone was doing, and let's say that Elmo was not ready for the transparency of many people saying that they weren't doing great. At the time of this podcast recording, Elmo's Twitter status has received 209 million views with over 20,000 comments, and this went viral the other day, if you don't know what I'm talking about, with many people expressing to Elmo that they're really not doing so great, but hey, thanks for asking. And it kind of became this ongoing post about things, which certainly, if you want to go and check this out, you definitely can. But overall, the message that I took from this is that, as a society, we're all going through some stuff right now. So, going back to the point, it's okay to not be okay at this moment. Right now, what comes to mind, I think of the massive layoffs in the news and seeing many people on LinkedIn saying about how they're already burned out from applying to hundreds of jobs at once. This is a whole separate conversation, by the way, but the best advice that I have seen from other people online has been to allow yourself breaks and downtime to recover and then to jump back in again when you're ready. This same sentiment applies to learning, though. If you are having a ridiculously stressful day at work and you are then trying to force yourself to make progress on a skill, it's probably not gonna happen. You will make very little to no progress under these circumstances. It's far more effective to shut it down for the day, and by it, I mean your brain, and then to try again the following day. The message here is be aware of your mental state. Only you can take care of you. And if the right conditions aren't being met, your learning will come to a crashing halt. The next space is physical space. Think of a time when you made tremendous progress on a project for work or school. Where were you? What was the environment like? Maybe you were thinking of an empty conference room, a library, a classroom, your kitchen table, or a quiet space at work. Whatever comes to mind, you can try to replicate this environment. If nothing comes to mind, that's perfectly okay too. One thing that I started to research online was how people create their perfect office setup to increase productivity, and wow, some people are extremely creative. While I don't have the perfect office setup by any means, I did realize that there are some small changes that do make me focus more. This usually means a low overhead lights, colorful light bars. I use Govee light bars, by the way. Candles, lo-fi music, things like that. And you can see many of these things that I just described on my YouTube videos in the background if you pay close enough attention. It sounds odd, but your area will absolutely make you far more productive. If your working space needs an update, also, I would recommend to check out Study MD's video on his desk tour from some ideas. He is a popular YouTuber out of Canada, and he does the Study With Me videos. And all of the videos, they always have like this amazing background to them that looks so calming and just somewhere where you actually want to work. You have this desire to get work done, and you can watch his video, and he showcases, and I'll put the link in the description in this episode, about his tour, about everything for his setup. While this physical space is your ideal learning environment, this isn't always going to happen in the real world. There will be times when you'll have to learn on the fly and will probably be accompanied by a decent amount of stress. For instance, I commute to work and I take a train. A train is not my ideal place to hammer out work under a deadline, but it has to be done. When I have these moments, I try to trick my brain into productivity. I guess you can call this a form of biohacking, but I really don't like the connotation around that word. It has really been misused and overpopularized by a whole bunch of people online, but anyway, in essence, sure, I'm doing biohacking, whatever you want to be able to call it. So here's what I do. I put on a Study With Me video, and just this act alone triggers me into getting my work done. The act of seeing someone work alongside me, diligently plugging away, gives me this feeling of I'm writing in a coffee shop. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, I'm already doing amazing things. And it feels like somehow time has just magically flown by over into like the next hour, then the next, and the next. And then all of a sudden, my work is done. A special shout out to Sonia Edwards, by the way, who mentioned that I was practicing a technique called body doubling. This means performing a task in the presence of another person to stay on track. I had a difficult time finding research around this technique, and if you find some, please share it with me on LinkedIn. Send me over a message because I really couldn't find much from a scholarly perspective about this technique called body doubling. But for the ADHD and the self-help community, it seems to really help to be able to follow along to do this type of technique. So, of course, if you are the kind of person who needs the exact opposite, which is one of the things I found when researching body doubling, is that while this helps out a ton of people, there are also plenty of people as well too who are saying, wait a second, I work best alone. I don't want to try to have this type of presence with me. Then obviously don't do that. Do what's best for you and make sure that you're following your own path. But if you are like me and you realize having the presence of another person, quote unquote, can help to drive you with learning, then I would absolutely do that. The next space is social space. Adults thrive when they learn together. It's the essence behind the effectiveness of cohort-based learning, after all. Yes, you can accomplish a tremendous amount on your own, but collaborating and sharing with like-minded individuals will push your learning further. What's interesting to ponder about is that as children, we are set up to constantly learn and interact with other kids. I mean, think about it. Classrooms, sports, clubs, music, other communities create a social learning environment for you. By the time you reach adulthood, these all disappear unless you proactively create these social learning environments. When I launched Instructional Design Institute, I knew it had to be a cohort and to give students plenty of opportunities to work with one another. I've seen the results. I know the impact. I've studied about cohort-based learning for a while. I know it works. What I was not expecting, though, was reading testimony after testimony, specifically calling out the ability to work with other instructional designers as their favorite part of the learning experience. All this is to say that a social element has to be in the learning environment. If you are finding yourself looking to create a new social space for working, I do have a few ideas. The first is that a bunch of you on LinkedIn recommended to look into something that is called a FocusMate, a virtual collaboration space where you are paired with another person, you share your goals, and then you start working away, and then at the end, you kind of like celebrate together that you were able to accomplish your tasks. Online working sessions have also been a common theme for many folks in the L&D community. Bella Gaitan hosts virtual working sessions, and they seem to be really popular. If you give her a follow on LinkedIn, you can be sure to check them out. You should also check out my article on the impacts of joining a mastermind. If you have never considered doing that before, it really has helped me out over the last couple of years, and I would highly recommend going down below inside of the show notes and reading that article once you listen to this podcast episode. And our final space is the virtual space. Allow me to put on my instructional designer and online instructor hat for a moment. I cannot stress enough how much virtual spaces matter. If you've ever tried to learn on a clunky, broken, and confusing LMS before, you know just how distracting this can be. Your expectations and attention were laser locked and focused on exploring the content, and instead, you need a complete tutorial on how to just use the navigation. You can read many articles online discussing how face-to-face learning is far superior compared to online learning, and one of their points is how chaotic and mundane online learning can be. To be clear, I am quite vocal that this line of thinking is absolutely asinine, but I have to say, having seen so many organizations and institutions completely fall flat when it comes to setting up their learning experiences, well then yeah, I can understand someone's perceptions that online learning isn't that great if all they have seen has basically just been chaos and a completely unorganized type of a learning environment. We have decades of research on how to design meaningful online learning experiences. And still, so many organizations and universities don't follow these best practices. If you want your adult learners to succeed in an online learning environment, then you need to give them a fighting chance. Dumping everything into one module and hoping learners can figure it out is a surefire way to destroy any chance of learning. As educators and as designers, we need to remove barriers and challenges, not add to them. So, if you are finding yourself in this position as a learner and your virtual space is a dumpster fire, what do? Well, you redo the learning environment structure to fit your needs. It's completely unfair to ask this of you, but if you are determined, this is your next step. You can create an organized layout that works for you with creating your own Google Calendar, highlighting due dates, creating weekly goals, connecting with other learners in the class, and things like that. You could even take an extra step by reconfiguring the course layout with something more modern, like Google Sheets, Miro, Figma, Trello, or another type of these project management tools. There is also nothing wrong with printing everything out and using whiteboards and sticky notes. Many of my peers in grad school walked around with entire binders for each course. They would literally print out every single page of the course. And you know what? That worked for them. So whatever helps you to make sense of the chaos, that's what you should do. If you are looking for a new LMS, by the way, I recently switched all of Instructional Design Institute over to Brightspace, and I could not be any happier. Their virtual spaces are clean, they're simple, it's easy to follow along with from both an instructor's perspective and a learner's perspective. If you want to experience this yourself, and of course, to learn a thing or two when it comes to designing meaningful learning experiences, the next cohort for Instructional Design Institute does start on Monday, March 4th, so be sure to apply today. Remember, learning environments, they deeply matter. Small changes can lead to huge results. Give it a try and let me know how this goes for you. Folks, that is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed this podcast episode. If you did, be sure, share it on LinkedIn. Comment down below on what you're going to be able to try to change, or perhaps comment on something that you have done that aligns with some of the things I have said, and mention about what really does work for you, what does help you in these circumstances. I truly was shocked when I began to research more about how do I create an effective type of a working environment, and there are just like millions of research of results online of people just sharing about what they've done, how they've structured things, how they have moved their desks around, thinking about even more things that I didn't want to go into as far as for with feng shui, with having different types of sunlight and facing the furniture in a certain type of position around the room, and then having different forms of diffusers, and there's all these things that people do. And the one thing that I'm hesitant on, it's still in my shopping cart, is to get an external type of a keyboard that actually has a really loud clicking sound, because for whatever reason, that noise seems to trigger us into thinking that we are working really hard. And of course, they're colorful keyboards, and there's all these other different things that I never, ever thought about when creating a home office or a type of a learning environment for myself. And truly, it's amazing to see what just some small changes will do. Even right now, talking with you. As I said, I have my little Govee lights. I have some different forms of soft dim lights in the corner of my office. And yeah, I have this little setup right now. And maybe I'll give a home tour someday about what my learning environment looks like at the moment, but still needs some more things to be done. But anyway, give it a try. I hope it helps you out. As always, what will help me out, great segue, by the way, Luke, nice job, if you can review this show to give it a 5-star rating wherever you are listening. I am not picky. Whatever type of podcast player you are using, your reviews for this show really do matter, and I appreciate them. I read every single one. So, of course, I appreciate all of you for listening. But that is all I have for you. So as always, hey, stay nerdy out there. I'll talk to you next time.